guys, and welcome back to Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Commander Cockins.
That's Commander Cockins for everybody that didn't get that.
It's Captain Foley for those who don't understand Canadian.
Perfect. Anyways, we are back today to talk about another ship. So what are we looking at today, Sam?
The USS Voyager A.
The Lamarr class.
No bloody classic B, C, D, E, F, or J. The A. So this is from Star Trek Online. They released their version and the fan base loved it, which is tremendous. And these are some brand new renders in our lighting scheme to kind of show it off, to look at the design. Now, of course, it's not the show model, but it is the licensed model. So it's as close as you can get while not being the actual model. Done by the amazing Star Trek Online team. And this one in particular, I think they did a phenomenal job on. And we're very keen to support Prodigy and get this out. So we're going to relook at the design. We've looked at it, in the past from the trailers, etc., but we saved doing a bigger episode until we could get better reference. Here are some renders and some orthos. We will do a comparison once we get the sort of the final scale number, which we haven't got yet, to compare some other things. But this is going to be sort of the we haven't really looked at the ship properly again, and this is our big chance to. So, Stuart, and you've got a 4K version as well, so you can have the crispness. What do you think, and how do you feel? Because this is the same angle we always do, that clean look. How does it feel when you strip away the blur of the TV or the action of the scene? How do you feel seeing it?
I feel very happy.
Well, that's good.
In all the right places. It looks really good. And yeah, it's cool to see the similarities with the Sovereign class, yet not. So that's the one thing that stands out right away. It's just the first glance, a lot of laymen might say, this is just the Sovereign, but it's not. So yeah, we're going to break it down and look at the details, though. So what did you think seeing this one after the whole schmagoggle of, Prodigy and going through those screen caps, and now we got this?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't first look at it again, because we spent a long time trying to build a hero replica of this to take to Vegas and such. So I've seen this thing, I've pored over the texturing, trying to get the lines, and so I there is no first look anymore. That said, that was me trying to make it work. This is it as it should be. So nice to see as it should be, but I do know it quite well at this point.
And how close is it to the one you guys came with?
I'll boast, I would say very, very close, but there's a lot of course, subtle differences in what plates are raised or not raised. That stuff was entirely absent, really, from we couldn't tell. So there's a lot of real subtlety there that I had no idea, which is nice. But yeah, a lot of the details I really worked hard on. Next to the phaser strips, phaser strips are the purple, the gold things. There's some cutouts next to them, which there's not a single clear view of what's in them in the show. I always hoped there'd be window insets, but you can now zoom in and see there's 2 red dots, and so I still don't know what they are. Now, they might be the docking ports, because there's a docking port, another part of the ship, maybe, but weird thing. It's a big ship, so it might work scale-wise, but I didn't know what was in those, because we couldn't ever see, so it's interesting to see them now.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment here. We talked about, there's no window detail on the Voyager A. Here you've got things that look like they might be windows at first, but when you actually think about it, they're not, because they do kind of extrude from the hull a little bit, and they're on the phaser strips, if those are phaser strips, because they're an odd choice for phaser strips.
I mean, they do fire phase at one point in the show, so
yeah, I know, but anyway, they don't look like windows, and I don't think they're meant to be.
Yes, this is the confusion. Obviously, I think we both had debates online about this ship to people, not about people, but about the ship to people, and people say, "Oh, these are the windows," and just assuming the obvious. But it's you're saying it only has 46 windows, and they're mostly not on the hull, and they're all in weird places. Are you really saying that? So obviously they're not windows. They can't be windows. There's no structural way they can be windows. And like you said, on the phaser strip,
and what looks like an RCS thruster. Lots of weird ideas, lots of weird touches that I'm questioning why.
That is a good question. But I think this view really celebrates the overall design aesthetic. I think that's what you said at the start. It looks great. It's very smooth, as in there's not, even though our layers they're not drastic, so it has a kind of a homogeneous feel, which is neither bad nor good, that's what comes across. But it looks pretty. I am, of course, missing, like you say, the blinkies, RCS thrusters, windows, transporter emitters. Now, there might be things they intended to be similar, but without, even the Gen Hay from Picard has them now, thanks to the Star Trek Online and Picard Season 3. So by missing almost every detail, it just kind of feels empty versus the next gen of it, whereas no, we know what it looked like a little bit later on. So it's sort of confusing. It's a very unique craft, I'll say that.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. There are some visual Voyager tie-ins, like halfway between the bridge and like the front cutout. There's that detail which is on the Intrepid class, which is like, this is the Voyager A. We're going to add some Voyager things. So
yeah, it's definitely. I mean, the shapes feel like they had both ships on a whiteboard, or like a maybe animated whiteboard, and they could shift things. They sort of took both shapes and pushed and pulled, made a new shape. And said, right here, modeler, make a real version of that, because everything's unique, but it's a pointed E with. It's in I see what they've done, but I'm intrigued in the process to get there. There's a giant cutting at the front, and we've seen the show. No shuttles will fly out of it. There's no glows. What is it trying to be? If it's not a deflector and it's not a shuttle bay, when that is on some style of ships, the cut-in has a deflector of some kind. What is that deal? Because this view really shows there's nothing there.
Well, I mean, you zoom in right on the very edge of the front of the hull there. It does seem like there is a cutout, which could be like a deflector area in there. But yeah, it's odd because it could very well be shuttle bays, and it looks like there might be 4 doors, maybe for work bees or whatever, but there's no indication of that. And, I mean, it would make sense to have something there, but I don't know why they would choose that, because it's cool to have cutouts.
And it looks great. It does look good in this.
Yeah, but they should have a purpose.
And I do wish a deflector was there. I think a more Voyager-style dish, and then the bigger dish,
yeah,
as if they took the primary deflector of the Voyager. That's so advanced now. It's a secondary dish for us. And add another glow, because the shuttle bay, obviously the secret bay is a distinct sort of door style, and the back bay is a distinct door style. None of that is close to what this front thing is. So I don't know either. And it could be torpedo bays, he says with a giant high pitch, but we know Quantum's at the bottom.
Yeah, I thought of something similar, but I mean, there's no uniform of shapes there there's 4 different, 2 different styles, but 4 different ports there.
And keep in mind, this is 3/4, if not more, the size of a Sovereign. This is so much bigger than a Voyager. So any detail you think is a size is actually bigger than you think it is. So that is a giant. I mean, be way bigger than work bee bays. That could be 4 pretty big shuttle bay doors. But then why have such a big cutout?
It could be cargo bay doors. Could be a cargo storage area under there, maybe. But again, I wish there was markings to kind of indicate that.
Now, it would have been kind of fun if in this show, if the Infinity had come out of that, as in they custom. I kind of like it being a cargo bay, reminiscent of how the Resolute from Resurgence has a giant forward-facing door, which is a big door, which is the shuttle bay, but it's a big shuttle bay. And the reason it's here would be narratively so that the Infinity can come out, which is bigger than the normal shuttle, and to be hidden. In Cargo Bay 6, cough, cough, cough. Intriguing, right? A lot of questions, but I will say I really like the copper plating. I think it looks great. Although if they're trying to be phaser strips, then if everything's a phaser strip, then things that clearly aren't phaser strips then sort of defeat the purpose of having all be, things tend to have uniformity in colour in Trek ships, and by having such a variety, slight problem.
Well, we had speculated before the show even started that the ship had an armoured mode, like Voyager did at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And
the blade of hull temporal armor, yes.
Yes, and it was deployed here, which I still like that idea, but
never comes up in the show.
No, it should have.
It should have.
Because those don't strike me as phaser strips. There's no detailing on them. It's a cool look, and it would make sense to be a next gen style phaser, like next gen of the next gen, if you know what I mean. But it just, those white details kind of take away from it for me. If that was a white strip that went all the way along, cool.
I mean, it's funny because there is those areas above it which have grilling. I would love to see those areas just grilled, then it'd be a phaser strip. It's such an easy thing just to have them extrude and have grills. I don't know why they want this flat look.
Yeah.
Because I don't mind / do kind of like the 2 aft phaser strips. It's a weird choice to have 2 straight back to back, but it's a look. Then all the stuff in the bridge module, I'm not buying that's phaser emitters. And then certainly the RCS aren't as well. So there's definitely confusion. And what are the grilling areas? Because there's a lot of them, and they're very distinct, and they're big.
And speaking of that bridge dome area detail, it's kind of reminiscent of like the Defiant or something, where it's like inset. It's not a bridge module that we know, right? So
yeah, that or Equinox. It's kind of a
it almost looks like a docking hatch.
Yeah, does a bit.
So,
but we learned a lot there. Maybe next view, the back, very different view, creates all sorts of new questions. What do you think?
I like the look and design of this ship. I like the way it flows. I love the nacelles.
Flow's a good word.
Yeah, the nacelle look is nice. I love those black lines in there. The way that they're not overly lit blue. Like, I like the toned downness of it. But yeah, it's a big ass shuttle bay door on the back. So if it is a shuttle bay door, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because I wish there was something in the middle to indicate that it opens this way or something.
Well, we do see it in the show as being just sort of all open. I guess it wraps around and goes.
Yeah, and that's fine. I just wish there was like a separation point at the middle there, which I guess there is, but...
Yeah, why would you want such a large door, in the sense of, to open it, like, it has to curve around the hull? Why not have like 3 doors and some hull in between, so you have like 2 side doors and then a front door? Which would be kind of cool. Like, it's such a lot of space to open up entirely. Seems like an odd choice. But I really do like the engines. I mean, they are just Sovereign engines reshifted, and we'll see in the orthos how weird they are. But, of course, Sovereign had a different style grill structure. I quite like the way they've done the grills here. They're very sharp and precise. That said, you can't see them from almost any angle. Luckily, I guess a STO one pumped up the glow value, because in the show project itself, they look black, but you need that blue and red.
It's almost like, I mean, there's a lot of Sovereign details on here. Even on the saucer, like the rear of the saucer and the top of the saucer has a lot of Sovereign details.
But missing the windows.
It's like it's like you asked somebody draw a Sovereign and they had to do it from memory. And this is what you got. It's like close, but it's an interesting choice. And I love that even Lower Decks kind of references it a bit. I don't want the new nacelles to be all sovereign-y. And I don't have a problem with it. I love the Sovereign. I like this as an addition to the fleet. I just wish there was windows. And where are the impulse engines? Like,
that is the question. Because if you zoom in, there are 4 sets of grills. Now, in my version, I took the impetus and made the 2 ones where, they are on the Sovereign, the same exact bulks, and you can see the slits. Which on the impulse end of the Sovereign, the slits, the black bits, the bring around at the red. So I made mine red, and it looks a lot better, because now you're like, oh, it has thrust. I assume it didn't turn them on. Personally, I think the artists just forgot to turn that layer on, and then they committed, because there's clearly impulse engines, and they just aren't. Otherwise, what on earth are they, and why are they where impulse engines are, and why there are no impulse engines?
And it almost seems like there's an extra set up higher.
Is that good?
Same kind of detail.
Would you like that if there were 4 impulse engines? Because certainly a weird thrust, because they look like they go up slightly.
It'd be kind of weird, but at the same time, it's an interesting look. Especially if they were glowing. Like, if you had more glows to it, that's kind of cool. But
same detail, so it makes sense. And I think that was definitely just an oversight. They meant them to be on, they just didn't. Because things do happen in production, right? I just think when we looked at season 1, the Enterprise E was missing impulse engines.
Yes.
But obviously they're meant to be there, so that was just a mistake. That's not as if they just... So I think this is a mistake they did, and I'm not going to hold them too much against it. But it would be nice if they'd caught it, etc. But maybe not. Now, we still don't know what the blue grills are on the sides of the secondary hull, because I understand the side nacelle ones. They hit line of sight, cool. But line of sight should not continue up to the neck so far.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was thinking, it's to continue line of sight right through the secondary hull. The line of sight thing just bothers me, but no, I like having the glows there. I just wish there was an explanation for them. And I can't imagine what that would be in this case, because they look like warp chiller grills. They even have like stripe detailing in there, so it's the same color as the ones on the nacelles as well at the side. So I don't know. It's a good look. It's cool, but I wish there was an explanation for it.
So I find it thoroughly unlikely there are warp coils next to the shuttle bay, because that shuttle bay door is the entire secondary hull. So you're telling me there's a shuttle bay and then tiny warp coils that have no space that then extend out into the primary hull. I don't know if I believe that. So they're not. So that is not what they're not impulse engines because that's silly. A, they should be red, and B, they're on the nacelles, so there aren't side mounted. Yeah. So I don't know if they don't even know if they thought what they were. They might have just put them as a cool detail because it's cool, but I don't know what they're meant to be.
The only thing I could think of would be some kind of sensor or scanner. I don't know.
Oh yes, the aft nacelle sensor grid.
Yes.
That's an important place to put it.
The port and starboard deflectors.
On both sides of the nacelles. Both nacelles, both sides. The left port nacelle, port left deflector. Like, I'm fine if they were a slipstream emitter.
That I like.
But A, they never went to slipstream. We know they can, but they never did.
I buy that, actually. I buy that as one of the different drives. Like, it helps generate the slipstream tunnel. That's why they're there. And they connect to the same colored ones on the nacelles, and then the top ones are the regular warp glows. Like, okay, we could work something out technically to explain that.
I just wish there had been, like, say, two of those strips at the bottom of the saucer to kind of... I know the deflectors, you could argue, would be pushing out the field in front of them, but since there's so much at the back and nothing at all in the front half of the ship, there's a disparity of design language there for those glows. If there's one strip in the front, I say, okay, they're overall... Like, if the deflector at the front of the saucer had a line there, it'd be a bit weird, but I'd say, okay, that's part of the slipstream unit. Next view is the bottom. Very classic. I mean, this is Star Trek classicness down to a T, isn't it?
Yeah, more or less. Again, I like the cutout on the bottom of the secondary hull. It's kind of a waste of space. Consider there's nothing in there. It's not even like the Excelsior where there's like a cargo bay in there.
And that would look really cool, I think, to add that in here.
It would have, yeah.
But the next gen version. And it's a big ship, so it would have been fine to have.
And the bottom of those nacelles look very robust. They seem more suited as like landing legs, like these fold down, because it's got details there that you don't see on a lot of other nacelles. Especially the Sovereign. The Sovereign's very lacking in detail on the bottom of its
Shockingly, yeah.
Disappointingly so. I've always complained that there's no detail there. This, I like the detailing here. I just, again, what's the explanation for it?
Well, it's very industrial. Very...
Yes.
I mean, this view especially, I think, because you're losing a lot of those glow elements, it has a machined metal, honestly, Kelvin timeline, like that little bit of, like, you know, I wouldn't think that much of it if this was a proto-Kelvin sheet metal, very sleek version, of course, but I'd be like, okay... You know, it's a weird Franklin future version. Like, I could kind of see it because of the material type. But just from this view. Maybe because it's more reflective, I don't know. I like the plating in the pylons. That's nothing we didn't have at all. So I quite like this is just these triangles and... it's a shapes for shape's sake, isn't it? But it's... they're not just carbon copies of the E, which I appreciate.
Mm-hmm. And here, this view in particular, you get the intrepid vibe from that saucer.
Yeah.
The way it's curved,
it
just feels intrepid-y, so...
Oh, I'm sort of noting there's a... Because I'm wondering a lot of these things might have been, as in, the team that built this model were given a reference from the show, but the show version might have had iterations and then something was kept in but not kept to final. So if you look at the impulse drives where the E would be, there's like a rectangle, a curved rectangle in the middle. Now if that had just been like slid up in an impulse drive put there, weird placement, but there's like a zone where it could be. You know, it almost feels it's an intentional thing they just took away at one part of the story.
The funny thing is, I just talked about the curve of that looking like an Intrepid. It's funny because if you put your hand up and remove the nacelle, it looks like they took an Intrepid body and put Sovereign nacelles on it to get the final shape of this ship.
With a little bit of stretching, but yes, it's definitely a... You can't get more hybrid because it's a hybrid. Also, it's missing aft weapons. There's no holes for torpedo launchers. You know, dead space everywhere, right? And there's some spaces that could be, but...
Yeah, no visible phaser strips or anything at the back here.
I mean, maybe if those gold tri-copper details are, but what an awful field of view. They should, you know, you can't shoot forward as you can hit the ship. So there should definitely be, if they were consistent in copper being the phaser strip, have a copper line on the bottom of the belly, because there's nothing there, and there really should be.
And those copper wedges, I mean, we talked about those wedges when we first saw the ship. It doesn't make any sense for what those could be. I'm sure people will say reaction control thrusters. That's fine, I guess. We kind of speculated early on that it was something for the armor.
Mm-hmm. Armament, yeah.
If the ship was armored. Again, nice detail. Again, this is a ship designed by somebody that thought it looked cool and didn't put in the thought of what everything is. Because Star Trek ships are good for having everything
they used to
explained.
Be. Slash sometimes are.
Yes.
That's why the Stargazer is so well liked, the new one from Picard, because Doug and John and Thomas Maroney really put it all in, which is why it's funny that the Enterprise G Titan didn't have the thought put in because they had to do a new ship in like a week. So the thought was not put in. That's why it doesn't have thought put in, as in for the modern version. Yeah, I believe those chunks are meant to be sensor units, and I say, okay. I mean, anything could be anything if they're sensor units, right? There's no details that imply it. They're too big, as in they don't... Yeah. They're cheese wedges. And a very flat saucer. I mean, there's really little to nothing going on. No captain's yacht, except a giant triangle, which we'll see in a little bit. Or at least no Voyager version, right?
Yeah.
Boy, I wish there was an Excelsior-style cargo zone at the bottom of that. It's missing that so much.
I also wish this ship had a new Aero shuttle that would have launched during the show. That would have been great.
Aero Shuttle 2, you could call it.
Yeah.
Speaking of, the bottom front view. Great view. Looks great.
Mm-hmm.
Which is windows, but looks great.
Yeah, I love the way that deflector looks.
Mm-hmm.
It seems, again, I use the word robust again, but it seems very stocky and robust, you know?
Well, it's Voyager's dish, but super built and sort of doubled in power. Yeah, I really like that. The way it's housed is nice. The amount of layers is fun. It feels like a different shape profile, but that's what gives me the okay, we've got some power vibe, which I really like. And yet quantum torpedoes with captains. There is kind of nacelle lines.
I was looking at those. It's like, yeah. It looks like they could fold down to be nacelles, but just no detail there at all. They just took the shapes and changed them.
I don't know why you would... Like, this is gosh, 15 years, 12 years past the E. I don't think the same captain's yacht would still be like, for our next gen ship, let's use the 15-year-old design. I think they'd do a new one, so I don't really buy there'd be the same detail, personally. And that's where a new design would have been cool. A lot of cut-ins that have basically nothing going on. I was certainly expecting... I think when I said originally these could be the big window cut-in bays, but there's nothing really going on, and I'm kind of surprised by it.
Well, the one kind of at the beginning of the one phaser strip there, the closest one to us, if you zoom in on that, there are details in there which could be little windows, but they're so small and they don't read.
No. Well, they're not glowing, are they?
And it would also imply the ship is huge because of the shape of it, right? Or the size of it.
I didn't know there was two cut-ins near the not captain's yacht either that have, again, seemingly no purpose.
There are lines there. It looks like there could be doors that open, but...
I don't think you'd shape a door like that.
No.
You'd shape it logically. I mean, they look cool, but I don't know if the logic... And I guess the point at the front is to help the crew know which way's front.
Maybe. There is a blinky on the bottom, a white one.
There is.